Welcome into a 7-round mock draft for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers just finally figured out the quarterback situation. I think it was kind of assumed Aaron Rodgers was going to go there for a long time. It's official. I'm recording this a little bit before it's official, but I am going to release this pretty much the second it becomes official. So that's the thought process for this video. What are the Steelers going to do when they re-sign Aaron Rodgers? Let's go ahead and get into it. Let's break it down. 7-round mock coming at you right now. All right, we're going to use PFF here. We're going to start the draft. The first pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers is interesting. And it's interesting for a couple of reasons. One, tackle was definitely going to be a question mark. In this mock, Josh Simmons goes right before the Steelers. I think that's real. I think Josh Simmons could absolutely be a top 20 pick. We obviously know how important the tackle position is. Wouldn't have said that. I don't think that's realistic that the Broncos would take that, but whatever. Doesn't matter. This is just an exercise, right? Looking at tackle, man, I don't hate Kevin Banks, but I actually like Kevin Banks more as a guard. I mean, honestly, Zabel is definitely a guard in the NFL. Josh Connerly, probably going to be a first-round pick at tackle. Does he go this early? This feels like his ceiling. This feels like about as early as he could go. It's a question mark. Obviously, Dan Moore moves on to the Tennessee Titans. The Titans give him a bag, and the Steelers said bye. I didn't think he was that impressive last year. You look at like all the stats and everything that goes around the offensive line stats, and I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I deep dive studied Dan Moore before free agency, but didn't think he was that type of guy. Never felt like he was that dude. Feels like Titans just needed a position and needed to impress their fans, I guess. I don't know. But obviously that still leaves a hole for the Steelers, and we gotta fill it somewhere. Positions that I'm going to think about, just as far as this entire draft goes. We're going to spend a little bit of time in the first round because I want to talk about the positions I really care about. Would love to get a corner. I'm not sold on Joey Porter Jr. I like him. He's fine. Looking at Darius Slay for 1 year. Yeah, that's great. He's there. We got some backups. I think we can survive cornerback this year. Darius Slay is a stopgap guy, okay? So we have to add a player at this position. Is it first round? Absolutely not. Not here, okay? I'm never taking Amos. I'm never taking Harrison. Siobhan Revel, excuse me, I didn't really mean to click on that. He's a good player, has a ton of upside. Would love him if we had a second-round pick. We don't have that. So we're going to get into like the third, fourth-round pick. It's a position that we're going to think about. It's a position that we definitely will look at whether or not it works out for the Steelers in this draft. It's okay if it doesn't. Running back, another spot. So many good running backs in this class. So many guys. A lot of these names could fall. The dream for me would be DJ Giddens in the third or fourth round. That would be amazing. But if that doesn't happen, we might pull the trigger on somebody a little earlier in the third. We don't have a second. I don't know if I mentioned that already, but second round pick goes to DK Metcalf. That's worth it. That's worth it. That's a good second-round pick. 52 overall can be DK Metcalf. That's fine. So the rest of this class is going to be kind of cookie cutter as far as the picks. We got one pick in every round other than that. Looking at other positions, interior defensive line. Obviously, Cam Hayward's a dog. I mean, future Hall of Famer probably. And, we definitely need some spots. Now, the guys that I think about, Derek Harmon. He feels like a Steeler. He feels like he brings that edge. Kenneth Grant, I would rank higher probably. He's more of your, two-gapping, large. I mean, both of these guys could two-gap. I think Derek Harmon has a little bit more athleticism than a Kenneth Grant. Just more of that type of guy. There's a lot of names in the interior defensive line that I like. If we're going to take a shot on pretty much one of the top ones, I don't hate it at all. Kenneth Grant's amazing. Derek Harmon, amazing. Both guys that I think value. I really think Kenneth Grant's probably off the board by now in real life. So that's definitely a spot I would think about. If we could trade down and still get one of those guys, that would be awesome. Really, honestly, I would think about that if there's multiple guys in the spot. And then, of course, there's definitely going to be some conversation about safety. Brought in Thornhill, so I don't know. Like I want to add a DB. I already talked about corner, so I definitely want to help out that secondary. Wide receiver, who's our third wide receiver? We can talk about that in the later rounds, but it's not going to be a premium position that I'm going to address probably. So those are the spots we're going to look at. I do think trading would probably be an option. I'm going to stay away from doing trades in this mock just because I don't know. Honestly, I don't really foresee there being a ton of movement in this range of the draft. I just would be surprised by that. I would think, in like the early teens, if there's like one or two guys that teams just are in love with that are still on the board, I could see that being where the movement happens. At this point, we've had 20 names go off the board. Teams are probably comfortable with a variety of players, just like I would say the Steelers are comfortable with a variety of players. Ultimately, I'm gonna follow my board, and I'm gonna go Kenneth Grant here. I'm gonna take the D tackle. I'm gonna take the guy that I think is just the best player on the board right now that still fits the one of the needs that I had for the Steelers going into this mock draft. Love Harmon here, man. Love Harmon. I just want to put that caveat. I think Harmon might even fit the style of the Steelers a little bit better. Might even be the guy that they would value a little bit more. But I do think the value of adding like a true two-gapping giant human in the middle of that interior defensive line adds a ton of value, gives the rest of the team so much more room to work. So I'm going to do that. I just think guys like this are special. Kenneth Grant, I do think, is special. I think him going top 20 feels very, very locked in, and if he fell to 21, we'd be excited about that. So let's do that. Let's move on down the draft board into the third round, and we're in an interesting spot in the third round. We're in a really interesting spot in the third round because there's some names that it's going to be tough for me to ignore. Now we have a pick in 20. We have 40 picks away. We're 40 picks away from the next pick. So we got to imagine the majority of the big names are going to be gone. Running back is definitely a conversation. Running back is kind of top of the conversation for me. DJ Giddens would absolutely be my pick here. I love him in the third round. There's just no way he's not there, or there's no way he's there in the fourth. So DJ Giddens is absolutely one of my top players. I think he is a Pittsburgh Steeler. We'll talk about him more if I end up picking him. Just in general, like, go watch his highlight reel. He is fun to watch. He plays like a veteran. Like, you watch him just play, and genuinely he looks like a throwback player. He just has that style. But explosive enough, strong, fast. He has kind of a long stride, and I think that throws some people off. But, man, I really freaking love this dude. I think he's a special player, and I think he could be – he'd just be your day one starter. I really do believe that. That would help your offense so much. Now, what helps your offense more would be tackle. And in the third round, I think you have to value tackle over running back, unfortunately. And Charles Grant is still there. Long tackle out of William and Mary. He would be my name here. He would be the guy that I would absolutely take. I think this is his range. Obviously, there's definitely some raw aspects to his game, but he has the frame, he has the body for it, he has the movement skills, everything you kind of need, length, all the pieces. He just played at a small school, so you're gonna have questions there. Obviously, we can talk about corner and safety. I'm gonna pull them both up. Ton of names. Love Mbuka, love Ransom, big fan of Dorian Strong. Wouldn't mind any of these guys in the fourth round, honestly. I think we can probably wait, and I think a lot of these guys are still going to be here. I think this is very realistic to how the board would play out. Kevin Winston Jr. just went a couple picks in this mock. That feels less likely. Like, to me, Winston is the beginning of the third, late second type of guy. I'd be surprised if he's still there. But these guys, yeah, I could see it. I could definitely see it. Love the safety the safety out of Texas. God, I can't talk. All right, man, I want to do it. I want to take DJ Giddens. I want to take the running back. I want to give you guys one of my favorite players in the class and one of the best fits for the Steelers. But we passed on tackle in the first round. I don't know. What tackle are we getting? I think this guy can start from day one. I think you can believe in that from day one. We need to have a tackle. We have to replace what we lost in Dan Moore. Dan Moore was a third-round pick who ended up getting one of the top contracts in free agency this year. Excuse me, he was a fourth-round pick, ends up getting one of the top contracts in free agency. Steelers are comfortable finding the guys in this range. Let's do it again. Let's take the tackle. I think you have to in this spot. I really do. There was a lot of interesting names. There was a lot of players that you could have gone with there. Let's look at the board. We're going to be in an interesting spot. Can you please tell me a safety's there? All right. Billy Bowman Jr. is a popular name for me. I really like him. I just think he's constantly getting kind of disrespected in this range for me. But I get it. I do get it. So we're in fourth round. We have two picks that I think you could at least argue would be impact players. We've addressed both the defensive line and the offensive line. I'm going to start to say, hey, what are we going to do at running back? What's the plan at running back? Ooh, we got some names here. Tootin, this is exactly where his range is going to be. He ran, a 4.3? Something crazy. I mean, he's incredibly explosive, and he has the size. He has everything. Rashad Smith, great player. Jaden Blue, another speedy guy. I love him more as a compliment. I have a harder time seeing him just have a complete workload. Maybe that's just my bias. I don't see it that way for him. Monangai is a guy I'm going to talk about a little bit later. I love the way he plays. I think he runs like a Pittsburgh Steeler. Another guy who just, hard-nosed, physical guy. He's not the biggest dude in the world, but he plays like he is. He's fun to watch. This would just be such a beautiful spot for Tootin. I am rooting for the guy. I love Tootin. If you watched any of my other 7-round mocks, I'll be honest, I've targeted him a lot. He's one of my favorite late-round guys, and it's just I'm gonna follow the guys that I like, obviously, and I'm not taking anything away from anybody else, but I think he has everything. I think he has the speed. I think he has explosiveness. I think he can play. I think he can be a 3-down back, and he doesn't have to be. Don't get me wrong. He doesn't have to be a 3-down back. I think he has that potential. I do think he has some workhorse potential at the NFL level. Would love him in a spot where Warren is still there to be the third down guy. Would love him in a spot where he can just, I don't know, man. We're going to have to take the running back here for me. I'm going to have to do it. All right, and as we get into the fifth round here, I think we've addressed some of the bigger needs on the team. I think corner safety, somewhere in that ballpark. I mentioned earlier in the video, I did want to add that. We didn't get a premium spot. I still like some of the names here. Just looking at the corners and safeties on the board, Quincy Riley is an interesting name, just kind of an athlete more than a football player at this point. I don't love his play strength. Absolutely think he's in this spot. I can kind of, I don't know. I could definitely see him not being a favorite player by the Steelers standpoint, just because the Steelers defense embodies strength, adding a level of grit, and I don't know that Quincy Riley provides that, but I don't know. There's also, I'm not scared of coaching, and I know that Mike Tomlin isn't either. Fortune here is an interesting name, lengthy corner, but kind of in the yin to Riley's yang. Riley's a speed guy. I believe he was a track star in college or in high school, college, whenever. Fortune's probably his worst trait is his athleticism. I don't trust his athleticism. I kind of have a hard time. At the corner position, that's really tough. So it's you can only draft him for zone scheme stuff, and you just can't ever trust him in man-to-man. So I don't know. Where do you value that? Where do you put that in the range? Now, we're in the fifth round. So drafting a guy for a zone scheme and asking him to play a specific role in the defense, there's nothing wrong with that. There's an element there. I think ultimately I'm going to go for upside. I'm going to take Riley. I'm going to take the speed. Yeah, a lot of fast guys in the AFC North that we're chasing down, and I'm going to trust that we can get the most out of this guy. Fifth round doesn't have to start right away. Obviously going to be behind some really good players, get a chance to develop a Joey Porter Jr., guy I'm not 100% sold on, but I think he's definitely still the starter there, obviously. And then Darius Slay is a guy who's a stopgap play. He's not the long-term answer, obviously, older guy, but he fixes the position for now. You have some good depth pieces that they added in free agency and that have already been on the roster that I'm intrigued by. I'm fine with, but you had to add another name. I'm going to go with Riley here just to add a different element, I guess, to that room. All right, and as we get into the sixth round, this is kind of the range where I just want to round out the draft class. I want to round out what positions did I want to address, what positions are important to me that at least we talk about for this team, right? Now, quarterback is one of them. A late round quarterback, I already mentioned the fifth round could be a conversation. I'm just going to stay away from that just because I'd rather talk about other positions, specifically wide receiver. Looking at Nick Nash, this is a guy who I like in the later rounds. I think he has a little bit of juice, a little bit of explosiveness. He's not obviously definitely not a top tier prospect by any means, but can we get a little bit out of him? Can he develop into a wide receiver 3? We have DK Metcalf. We have George Pickens. We have some guys, but the Steelers always draft really well. Do we add a name to that spot of the draft, to the spot of the draft? I'm going to think about that. Again, I already mentioned corner in the 5th round. I would have no problem adding Denzel Brooks. He's somebody I would have considered in the 5th round there. Safety is another spot that we could absolutely consider here. Again, I have watched 2 of the names on the screen right now. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I have a large depth of knowledge about the guys that are going, 200 and on in this draft. Like, it's just like, let's be realistic. Let's be honest. I have a full-time job. I literally study the draft, make content about the draft with all of my spare time, but it's limited time. So to me, it's more interesting just to talk about the position and talk about the situation for the team and live in reality near the end of the draft than just this fantasy land where we're going to find guys that are going to be difference makers year 1, year 2. Like, these are lottery picks. That's just how I approach this. That's how I view it. I'd like to get the wide receiver. I like Nick Nash out of San Diego State. Don't know what I was trying to say, but that's where he's from. And then with this 7th round, we're going to go safety. Elijah Clark, one of the names I did know, actually, funny enough. Safety was definitely, R.J. Mickens. I like him, actually. Oh, there's nothing on him? Weird. Yeah, I like R.J. We'll go R.J. Mickens. I think he's an interesting name here. Lengthy guy. Has some traits. Definitely has. Yeah, we're gonna go R.J. Mickens. Lengthy guy, has some traits. Gotta add a piece to the secondary. I wanted to get definitely more than one. So as we look at this class, is definitely a kind of hole. Like, we filled some holes, in my opinion. We had to address tackle. We addressed tackle. I felt like we needed to address interior defensive line. We addressed it earlier than I kind of really thought I would when I first started it. But looking at the names that are there at 21 overall, Harmon could be there. Grant could be there. There's some really good interior defensive line talent that could be there that might just be the value of this draft and might genuinely be where the Steelers go with it, because that's where, you draft where the value is. You fall to the 3rd round, you get a guy that I really like out of William & Mary, smaller school, but he has all the pieces that I love. Now, it was tough for me to pass on DJ Giddens there, genuinely, because Giddens is a Steeler in my head. Like, he runs like a Pittsburgh Steeler. So the fact that he was there and I didn't get him, like, that felt a little wrong. But I want to put his name out there for the Steelers fans. Like, go watch his film. You're done watching this, subscribe. We appreciate it. But go watch him. Go watch his highlights. He's fun to watch. I think he has all the pieces. I'm gonna have a draft profile coming out on him a little bit later, probably not this week, but next week. So he's coming down the line for me, but he's a guy that I'm a big fan of. But hey, if you couldn't get him, you got Tootin, who is probably in that next tier running backs for me. This class is loaded. There's going to be guys that fall. So 4th round running back in this class could be a starter, could be a star, could be an absolute star. So I love that. And then getting into the later rounds, Quincy Riley. You got to add some depth pieces. We added a couple secondary guys, added a 3rd wide receiver, or a wide receiver to add to the wide receiver room. That not guaranteed by any means to be a 3rd wide receiver, but has some potential. I like some of the things that he brings to the table. So yeah, that's the class. Steelers in a really interesting spot, because if we address the running back situation, if we have Aaron Rodgers throwing the football to DK Metcalf and George Pickens, man, there's some talent here. A ton of talent on the defense still. It really feels like it's kind of been a longer reload for the Steelers, because Mike Tomlin doesn't let the Steelers lose. And if the Steelers could have just had 1 3-win season, they could have reloaded in that draft class and probably found themselves a quarterback, probably found themselves in a better spot long term. And instead, Mike Tomlin doesn't want to lose, so we just got to keep making it work with mid to late 1st round picks and non-premium picks. And it's like, okay, it's great because Tomlin's amazing, one of the best coaches in my opinion of all time. Like, we're getting into that kind of conversation. He hasn't had a quarterback. He hasn't had a quarterback since Roethlisberger retired, and really the last couple of years of Roethlisberger didn't feel like he had much of a quarterback then either. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. Do they double dip? Do they take Aaron Rodgers and then take another quarterback at the first? I could see that happening. I didn't go that route with this video, but I definitely wouldn't hate anybody who did. To me, we wanted to fill some holes. I filled some holes. I put it, to me, we look at this roster as a whole with these guys, theoretically, and I mean, they're competing for the AFC North, and if you can compete in the AFC North, you can compete for a Super Bowl. I really believe that. But all right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Peace.